How you going? My name's Anthony.C and welcome to my workshop. In today's video I'm going to demonstrate the uses of a chisel and show my method on how I use it, and with the way that I use the chisel is how I get a great finish on all my joints and all the furniture and pieces that I make. I've got a piece of hardwood, so some Vic ash, and I've got some softwood, some radiata pine, and I'll show you by approaching the timber in certain ways is going to give you a certain finish and certain outcome, but my in the way that I use my chisels it remains the same. So there is actually no difference for myself between your softwoods and your hardwoods. It just comes down to your approach. So come down to the workbench and we'll get stuck in. Okay, so I've gotten a bit of pine. As a lot of you probably do use this stuff, pallet wood, pine, cypress, it's all the same, softwood. And first bit of advice when you're doing joints or pairing or anything is try and keep that timber down as far down as possible, because the higher up you've got, you're going to have some bounce and it's going to work against you. Further down you can get better support. So now, this being pine, even hardwood, but I'm going to show you with pine because hardwood is using the same technique as pine. I'm going to get the finish that I'm going to achieve on here. You'll get the same finish on your hardwood, and the same applies for any knots and fiddleback, checkers, whatever you want to call it. So now I know with certain timbers, I know with pine for one, if you push your chisel through, you're actually going to get some good tear out, and obviously I don't want to get tear out in my joints. So what I tend to do, you can do it with any chisel you feel comfortable with. I normally like to start off with a narrow chisel, and what you'll find that I'll do is work to an angle, and you're just taking slithers off. So you can see there that I've got the back of the chisel, I've got the tip of the chisel with one hand, back of the chisel with the other, and this one is just holding it there as guidance. This one is going to move it around whichever direction I want to go. So I'm just going to watch my technique just a little bit. So with a small chisel, you see I'm actually coming in and curving it around. So as you work, you'll be able to see if you're doing it right. So I've got a good surface area there that's probably just a smidge below surface area. So that's where I get this bad boy, and we start to work a bit larger. So I'm showing you from the end what happens, and then I'm going to show you from the face what happens. So I'm just slowly working it, and you can see I'm really controlling it with the front, with my front hand, and slicing across. And then once you reach a point where you're going to start getting to a flat, we want to repeat the process and push through. And you'll find that I don't like using the whole chisel for the bulk of the work. I do tend to, and obviously I'm going to advise that when you're chiseling, you want to use the most of that blade as a reference point to keep your joint nice and flat. And then the rest of it is just a matter of working Now you'll be able to see in a minute, but it's more so for the hand skill. So I'm not sitting here holding it and giving it a good old tap from the back. That's actually really stupid because you'll actually cause yourself to get carpal tunnel. It's got nothing to do with building tendons in your hands. You'll just fuck your hands up too quick. So if you've got to hit a chisel, please do use a mallet, either a rubber mallet or a timber mallet. Not a steel mallet, because just not a steel mallet, or a steel hammer, sorry. You don't hit your chisels unless it's got a steel plate here. You don't hit your chisels with a steel hammer. So now getting back to this. You'll be able to see with the technique I've used. From one direction, you can see the technique I've used with the chisel. Now I'm going to show you, in a minute I'll show you the finish, but I'm going to show you another direction that I would tend to go once I've started this, and I'll explain it to you more in a minute. So now I'm going to come in from this side and I'm going to show you how the finish changes by changing your direction. And all timbers are exactly the same. Again, you can see I'm using my front hand as guidance and my back hand just not even exerting huge amounts of pressure. It's just taking what I need to take off to achieve the finish I'm after. Okay, so normally when I'm coming across the end, I like to taper it. So I'm actually putting this on an angle, this edge, and nearly taking it to the point of the other side. And you can see now I've switched to a slightly larger chisel, and I haven't gone to my 32mm chisel yet, but that's coming. Okay, let's come up a bit closer. And you're probably thinking, geez, it's taking a long time. But in fair honesty, it's not taking me much time at all, just because it's I'm taking my time, I'm making a better joint. It's only going to take me a couple of extra minutes. It's not as if I'm looking at hours, it's just a couple of extra minutes to really look at giving myself a really beautiful finish, which is what every woodworker out there would strive to do. So you can see my technique hasn't changed, it's remained the same. I'm going to pull these in a bit closer. Got you nice and close now, so you'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, you can basically already see from this side to this side how different the finish is, just from changing grain direction and changing your method of travel. So again, you can see that I've actually beveled this up the angle, and I'm going to bevel this side up towards to meet this point here. And I'm just starting with a smaller chisel and then working my way up to the larger chisel. I can actually continue this with the larger chisel, which I will in a minute, but look, with your chisels it all comes down to friction and surface area. The wider the chisel, the more friction you're going to have. The smaller the chisel, the less friction, means you're going to get a cleaner cut, but it also means you're probably not going to get a straight cut or a flat cut compared to dealing with this bad boy. So now that I've got that to a point to the center, this is what I'm going to do. I am slicing this timber and I'm going to marry it up with the other side. Okay, and just to show you what I mean, if I come in from here, I'm actually going to end up chipping that, and I'm going to get tear out. So this section here is the closest to being flattest. So this is where I'm going to work from. And slowly pull it back. So again, all I'm doing is just guiding that front of the chisel, slowly taking it back till I hit this point here. There, and you see by me taking from the shallowest point to the deepest point, my tear out is minimal. And this is where experience will actually prevail and tell you what that timber's doing and what's going on. Because I've switched to a smaller chisel. Just to knock this high point off. And you can see the slithers that I'm taking and how nicely this is coming up compared to coming in, tearing the grain out. You can actually see how nice this finish here is. And look, honestly, for demonstration purposes, I think I've pretty much achieved what you'd want to see. This side here can turn out a lot more worse than that, like a lot more worse than that. Like it'd almost end up looking like a bloody quarry. And that there is for pine. Really well, really good. Obviously, if this was for a job, I would take more time in coming around here and making sure that it's nice and flat. And it's for the likes of a joint is perfect. And now just quickly, you're pretty keen in seeing that in some hardwood? Because I can do it again in some hardwood. You pretty keen? I'm pretty keen, so I'll show you some hardwood. So we're going to start with some end grain. Going to come in this way, and then I'll show you a different direction, and you'll get to see the finish. And one of the reasons why I'm showing you end grain pairing is if you can get yourself really good chisel control with end grain, you can get yourself awesome at absolutely everything else. And I kid you not, I reckon that's a pretty decent distance, and it's a good amount down. That's a bit better. So you can see here that obviously I can be a little bit more aggressive with your hardwood, and again this comes down to experience in using your timber species. Doesn't matter what it is, if it's Australian timbers, if it's imported timbers, if you're using walnut or ebony, let's say, or if it's an Australian species and you're using spotted gum or sugar gum or ironbark, they're really hard, like extremely hard, and you can approach them differently. You can be a lot more aggressive because the grain's a lot more closer. And you can see here just with hardwood how nicely this is already coming up on the grain, on the end. And it's not something that takes long. It's like to show, to learn. It just comes down to how much time and effort you want to give to hone your skill. And there you go, that's a great example of being really aggressive. Coming in from this back end and just pushing that out. But I suppose one of the beautiful things about hardwood is you can clean that up really easy. And again, my technique does not change. As I'm coming further down into the timber, obviously I can't get my hand underneath it, and really important keeping pressure down in the front. So I've just changed, put my knuckles on the timber. So, and now we'll come in on the end, or the side of the timber. Now you're going to see instantly how this is going to just change the results. Like, that's really good, but I'm just going to say now, before I even finish it, this should blow you away. Okay, so we're going to spin that around. And give you the final result. Actually, you can see what I'm doing, again working to that upward angle. And we're going to bring that down and marry it up with the other edge. And once I get relatively close, you can see that I am using this small chisel as only it's one very tipped corner, and using the rest of the chisel as a reference to try and keep that nice and flat. We'll get one of you first. So now we go up, and this is where we start to, I'm going to bring this side here down a little bit and get this bad boy, and we'll look at finishing it off. So, and again, you can see here from coming in a little bit more aggressive, it still comes up quite nice, but not as nice as this, as taking your time, and it doesn't take that much more time and effort to get your joints finishing like this. And obviously this way is a little bit quicker, so it just depends on yourself. If you really want to hone your skills and you want to get to the point where you can get to this finish, then by all means I definitely recommend and commend you for it. And if you're happy with that type of finish, then again it's all fine. Obviously you could come in a lot more aggressive. I've seen a lot of guys come in and they'll like to chisel on a downward angle and actually scallop this out. But like I said, or I've said before, when you're making joints, it's a structural joint. You need all that surface area nice and square. Otherwise, you're just creating useless joints. You can see there with the two different timbers, there is obviously, you do get a little bit of tear out with your pine still, but that's your radiator pine. If I was using something like a celery top pine or a cypress pine, the grain's a lot more closer together, so it does hold itself a lot more better when you're carving away or paring away with a chisel. But hopefully you enjoyed that, and if you did enjoy that, please go ahead and hit the like button, and please feel free to subscribe to my channel, as I will have more useful tips and tricks up on a regular basis. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you all next time.